Well, good evening, folks, and welcome to the Illinois Freedom Caucus Tuesday night live stream. And thanks for joining us. We have a very special guest this evening to talk about election integrity and voter roll cleanup. That's Miss Carol Davis. So, Carol, please just take it away.
Well, I know people have been wondering what's going on with the Illinois voter rolls and specifically what the federal government is doing about it now that we finally have an administration that's got our back and is taking election integrity seriously. Um, I was at the White House in April, and basically, this is a very top priority for President Trump. And so thank God for that, because there are huge problems with our elections, and it's not a shameful thing anymore to say that there was a problem with the last few elections. So things are turning, thank goodness. As you know, the federal government really doesn't get involved in depth in elections. That's according to our Constitution, Article 5. It's the up to the states to determine the time, place, and manner. However, they do have they designate, of course, the second Tuesday as Election Day, and the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi, she has hired Harmeet Dillon, who, if you're not familiar with her, she's an outstanding election attorney who was based in California. She is now the Assistant Attorney General for the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. The Civil Rights Division has a division called the Voting Rights Division. And so that's where the activity is coming from the federal government to try to help make sure that states are properly maintaining their voter rolls. They're allowed this power to delve into whether or not the states are maintaining their rolls under a bill called the NVRA, the National Voter Registration Act. That federal legislation was passed in 1993, signed by Bill Clinton. And that's the law that mandated that every driver's license facility, public aid office would register voters. Thankfully, even though the Republicans didn't have much power in 1993, they did manage to slip in Section 8. And that's a provision that says that if we're going to have all this registration going on all over the place, then states are required to properly maintain their voter rolls. So that is Section 8 of the NVRA. Now, that's the one that has allowed Harmeet Dillon. First, she sent a whole slew of statutory notice letters to just about every state, very nonpartisan. She's wanting every single state to know that they better be maintaining the rolls. So she sent all these states letters, and as of the end of December, I haven't heard any updates yet in January, but as of the end of December, as of December 30th, 13 states were willingly complying by supplying the voter rolls. And she's looking for unredacted voter rolls, and that I'll get into in a little bit. Because that's really the only way you can do a true match, is when you have all the data that you need to match. So as of the end of December, 13 states are willingly complying. She is actually in litigation with 22 states that have said we're not going to help. And of course, Illinois is one of those folks.
Now, are those red states or blue states, Carol?
Actually, I believe there are just a couple of red states that are pushing back still, but mostly blue states, of course. And, it's kind of silly because when they're complaining that, oh, this is private information, and we can't take the chance that the federal government's going to, divulge any of this private information. Well, it's pretty silly because the contention is the Social Security numbers. They don't want to provide the full socials. And we know that the federal government is the entity that actually assigns those Social Security numbers. So it's a pretty lame argument. So, but yeah, Harmeet is awesome. She's relentless, and she will succeed in her role. And the exciting part about this, guys, is that with Trump in charge now, he has directed the Department of Homeland Security under Kristi Noem to make sure that public officials in each state, whether it's the state's board of elections or even down to the county clerk level, has access to something called the SAVE database. That's the Systematic Alien Verification System. It's a database that logs every non-citizen that applies for any federal benefits. So now, which this was never available in the past, where a state could bump their rolls up against that SAVE database through DHS and find out, hey, do I have any non-citizens parked on my voter rolls? So I believe a couple of states are just starting to take advantage of that. Of course, our Illinois State Board of Elections probably won't won't jump on that bandwagon, but the exciting thing is that we think there might be a way for county clerks to do this independently. So stay tuned. We'll try to find out more about that. And of course, Illinois is known for having very messy rolls. You probably know that I knocked on Judicial Watch's door back in September of 2017 and have built a relationship with them. Every time I'm in Washington, I go to their favorite cupcake shop and bring them their favorite cupcakes. So we've built a good relationship with them. And so, of course, we sued to get access to the voter rolls and won that lawsuit back in July of 2023. Then we turned around after Judicial Watch analyzed those rolls and discovered that out of the approximately 8.1 million voters on Illinois' voter rolls, about 800,000 of them are ineligible to be on there. So when you've got 10% of your voter rolls that are not correct, 10% can make a big difference in all kinds of races.
Now,
So,
Carol, when you
yeah.
say, just for clarification for the viewers, when you
Mhm.
say ineligible, what could that mean? That could be anything from they've died to they're here illegally to they're felons. I mean, what all could that be?
It can encompass all of that. What we know Judicial Watch looked at, because of course, once we won that lawsuit, we don't have the super big computers that they have that can analyze this. But it's people have died, people and not been removed, people have moved and not been removed, and of course if there's a non-citizen or what we call a ghost voter of some type in there. So yes, all of the above would encompass that 800,000. And of course that's an estimate, but it's a pretty good estimate. In our second lawsuit with Judicial Watch, that was to say to the state, guess what? You've got 800,000 ineligibles that need to be removed. Now, according to federal law, you need to take them off. And that's the second lawsuit that's in process now. I was one of the plaintiffs, and Judicial Watch was a plaintiff. Illinois Family Action was a plaintiff, and Breakthrough Ideas was a plaintiff. Unfortunately, the judge in the Seventh Circuit found out that I don't have standing and Judicial Watch doesn't have standing in that lawsuit. And the standing is a whole other thing, guys. That's why the Bost case is so critical, and we can get into that if we have time. But so I'm kicked off as a plaintiff, and Judicial Watch is not a plaintiff, but they are, of course, still representing IFA and Breakthrough Ideas. So that is moving through. Unfortunately, Mark Elias, who's the evil genius attorney on the left, some of you may be familiar with that name. He's the one that screwed everything up royally for us in 2020. He intervened in that lawsuit on behalf of, who could guess, the AFL-CIO Illinois and the Illinois Federation of Teachers. They, for some reason, wanted to join the state and say, no, you can't clean the voter rolls. I don't know why, but we can guess. So anyway, that's kind of where that's at now. I believe it's actually going into the deposition stage, and that's moving through. So, and then, so hopefully we will get some action on that. But the beautiful thing is the Judicial Watch suit and Harmeet's suit are putting the squeeze on Illinois. And sorry to tell everyone this, but when I was at the White House in April, I told them, hurt Illinois. If it means you have to withhold federal funds from us to get some of these voter things through, voter ID or whatever, and we're already hurting, and I know that, but I think that's the only way we're going to get citizens who aren't paying attention need to feel, I'm sorry, the pain of what's going on here in Illinois. And if the federal government can put the squeeze on them and force some action here, that would be a good thing in my thinking.
On the Senator Chesney, you're muted. You got something to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, Carol, I got a question for you. So, absent action from the federal government, the judges, and we don't expect much action from the Democrat supermajorities in Illinois, what can the county clerks do today under existing present law to make sure that they are utilizing everything they can to clean the voter rolls the best they can for good county clerks and county boards that see it the way we do? What can they do?
Well, here's the exciting news. We have an Illinois voter list maintenance working group and have had for the last 4 years. And the beauty is we're connected with a national network. And so we have a relational database. And I'm going to send you guys our most recent fact sheet that kind of breaks this down. That voter list maintenance team is led by the former clerk in Lake County, Illinois, Willard Helander, who actually won awards for the way she ran elections. A stellar, wonderful person. And she's got some fantastic data volunteers who are working with her. Now, what they're doing with this relational database is they can not only tell you who moved, when they moved, where they moved, if they've now registered to vote in another state, if they voted in that other state, and give you the county clerk's phone number of that new state where that voter who was in Illinois is registered, to go back to your local Illinois county clerk and say, county clerk, you need to remove this person. They're registered and voting in another state. That's how far we've drilled down into that information. We're using the NCOA, we're using property roll records from all across the nation. Now, the problem is that local county clerks have been intimidated. They feel if the minute they try to clean their voter rolls, the left is going to sue them for voter suppression, voter intimidation. But there's one golden piece here that I'm frustrated that people are forgetting. In 2018, there was a Supreme Court decision, Houston versus Randolph. And I'm shocked at how many even national level attorneys have forgotten about this Supreme Court decision. It says that the clerks cannot just park voters in the inactive file indefinitely. That Supreme Court decision said you must remove them after you've gone through the process, which is outlined in the NVRA, which is sending them the postcards, that whole bit. So that's what the county clerks need to know, is that the Supreme Court has your back. Now, of course, I've been at this for 15 years, guys, kind of shouting in the wilderness. And thankfully, after 2020, people started paying attention. But my prayer was that the county political organizations were nonpartisan, so they can be Democrats or Republicans as far as we're concerned. But we thought maybe the county political parties would get into the clerk's office and say, hey, we want to help you clean the voter rolls. We've got this wonderful voter data that the voter list maintenance team is showing us. And you've got the law at your back that allows you to remove them, because what happens when they park a voter in the inactive is that they can be very easily reactivated by a vote by mail ballot request. And of course, we know that that's a super highway to fraud. Vote by mail is a problem.
Well, that's, I mean, very, very educating to know. And I'm glad the senator asked that question, because the local folks need to feel supported. They need to feel empowered. But it blows my mind. Well, it doesn't, right? And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Chris, David, Adam. Carol mentioned that as we wrap up, that the usual suspects, right? The AFL-CIO, the IFT. Well, why wouldn't they be opposed to this? Of course they are. And as we try to do good things to clean up our elections in Illinois, same bad actors, the same people that are on the wrong side of every policy issue. So, guys, I just want to throw it open before we close. What you guys, think about that?
Well, when Carol mentioned that, my first thought was, why do they have standing? I mean, right. I would be curious to know what the court's reasoning is to allow them to intervene. That would give them standing in this kind of matter when you've got people trying to challenge the voter rolls and make sure that they are cleaned up. It's just, again, some of our judges are not the best.
Well, and that's why the Bost case is so critical, because from what I'm hearing from the national election attorneys that I work with, like, Hans von Spakowski and Cleta Mitchell, and, they're thinking that maybe the Supreme Court won't decide on the merits of that case, which is the 14 days to count ballots after Election Day. That is the crux of that. But as you might know, the reason it's in the Supreme Court is because the Seventh Circuit determined that Mike Bost doesn't have standing in that case to bring that lawsuit. That's why Judicial Watch brought it to the Supreme Court. So if for nothing else, if they don't decide that for 14 days, at least if they decide the standing piece definitively, because we've discovered the left always has standing, folks. The right never has standing. And this needs to be determined. And then they can remand the rest of the case back to the Seventh Circuit and they can make a fair ruling on it.
Yeah. And I've had conversations with some of our local clerks about what it takes to get somebody removed. And it's a little bit of a process. You mentioned the postcards and following up, and for smaller counties, there's money that's involved in all of that process.
Yes.
So that the county bears the burden of cleaning up the voter rolls, and they need the funds to do that. And you would never get that funding from the state.
Yeah. Right. And plus, on the opposite side, it costs money to carry all this dead weight in the voter rolls. Can you imagine what it is costing to carry 800,000 voters on our rolls? You have to send them the notices, you have to keep them in your data, so yeah, there's a lot of money involved. If no one believes there's any problems with dirty voter rolls, hit them in the pocketbook with the fact that those dirty voter rolls are costing Illinois taxpayers a ton of money.
That's right. Adam, Chris?
Yeah, folks, I think the big takeaway from this conversation is Carol's doing an amazing job, and also education from our county clerks, what you can do, what you can't do. I know a lot of people end up being scared to do anything because they just don't know the rules or what they can and can't do. So I appreciate you coming on and letting us know what they can and can't do, what the future holds, what's happening at the federal level, and really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. And real quickly, I'll let you know, one of our projects this year going forward, if I can raise the funds, is a bulletin to every single election authority and clerk in the state, hitting a focus on specific laws, because we found out that many of our clerks don't know or understand the law. So we're going to clarify it for them.
That's great. Leader Chairman Miller, any thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Carol for coming on. This is an extremely important topic, and we need to continue to fight this battle. And we need to not just fight this battle, but we have to win this battle, because if we don't have election integrity and we can't count on the ballot box being accurate and fair, then we're no better than a third world country. In fact, we're worse than a third world country. The only difference is we don't wear fatigues, we wear suits and ties. But just the whole idea that there's pushback in having free and fair elections is just amazing to me. It shows you how diabolical and how wicked the left really is and how power hungry they are. And they literally will do anything to keep their power. And and another takeaway that the American people need to understand is they do not care about you. And they care about themselves and their power base. And so,
yeah, just a quick follow up on that, Chris. I'm always amazed at the pushback we get when we, advocate for voter ID. You think about that. Everybody's got an ID card. I don't care. And they make it out to be some kind of poverty or racial issue. Everybody in this state's got an ID.
Right.
There's no reason why you shouldn't have to show your ID to vote. What is more sacred than your vote?
You can't do anything without an ID. You can't check into a hotel. You can't buy a pack of cigarettes. You can't buy a 6-pack of beer. You can't do anything. Get on an airplane, et cetera, et cetera, if you don't have an ID. I mean, it's just laughable that they want to make such an issue out of this.
Yeah. So even with all this gray hair, I still get carded when I buy 12-pack.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for a great discussion. Thank you, Carol, again, just for your great work. And this is a really important issue. And you said it earlier, and we'll restate it. Thank goodness we have a White House right now that cares about election integrity and cleaning up our voter rolls. And so we need to embrace that, support that all that we can. And with that, folks, we will say thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Bye.